All right, everyone, we should be live. We'll make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course, we get quite a few news topics. I think 10 or 11 of them actually docketed up, but some of them are just humorous. It's more like the Greta thing with Andrew Tate is funny, but it's not really newsworthy except for being newsworthy. It's one of those catch-22 situations, sort of like, what Paris Hilton does at the next Def Leppard concert or something like that, I suppose. We are indeed live on Rumble. I see that chat is working as well. Always a good thing. Suspicious Scissors, Section 8. Congress has the power to coin money. Coin is a verb. Yeah, literally in that context. Yes. It's also a noun. It'd be funny if we used a strict constraint on them, like some of the leftoids want to do, like, Second Amendment only applies to musket. I guess Congress only has the power to make, like, nickels and stuff. They have the power to make pennies that are worth less than a penny the second that they're made, I think. So, yeah. They had to switch to zinc because copper's too valuable. People steal that shit constantly. We'll get right into the news, though. First and foremost, Hannukah didn't go off without a hitch the other day for Google. The link in the description is literally just to my tweet here, but there are a bunch of people that did post their results. Apparently, some people, and it appears to have been mainly in the United States, which might explain it. Of course, I'm in the Netherlands at the moment. When they Googled the word Jew, Loomer went frenetic over this. They were seeing the generally antiquated definition, which is a verb, like to Jew someone. It's a derogatory thing, and it sort of goes back to, I think, the Middle Ages, with Jews at the time literally being the only ones that were able to issue loans at interest. So they typically were the only ones that did it, leading to the widespread stereotype of them as greedy. And for some reason, Google defaulted to that antiquated definition over saying, hey, a Jew is a person who practices Judaism or happens to be of Jewish ethnicity. And it lasted a few hours, and then they corrected it. I think they blamed a glitch for this. I myself did not see that result. When I looked it up, I got the more mainstream result. But a lot of people were reporting that for the last day of Hannukah, no less, that happened. I get the feeling that it was a little bit of algorithmic distortion as part of a coordinated effort, possibly by 4chan or other groups. I can't imagine that it was by mistake. Like, I mean, Google, their engineers didn't notice that. Like, they don't park on that sort of, like, the ADL doesn't have several people live monitoring literally everything in their algorithms at this point. Goddamn, how many FBI agents do you think monitor YouTube alone, considering how many were allocated just to Twitter? I think that somebody gave him a tip off and like, oh shit. At first I assumed it was a joke because I couldn't replicate it myself. Then I realized, oh, that's right. Google at this point gives you different results based on where you are. Sometimes even trying to default the language. It's like, okay, I don't want to search for Dutch news sources for US news, Google. Just to be clear, I don't really speak fluent Dutch. Unwashed mime. Favorite potato dish to eat or cook? Clank. Well, if Liz is cooking scallop potatoes, she does an excellent job of it. It's delicious. Lots and lots of speck, which is ham, bacon specifically. By the way, you can't get normal cuts of bacon in this country. They're either speck, like they're chunks, which is yummy, or they're really, really thin sliced, and some people eat them raw. And I don't know exactly why people do that. I always was led to believe that you could get trichinosis from that. Apparently, if it's farm raised, it's not really a problem. But why the fuck would you want to eat raw bacon? Can't possibly taste as good as when it's cooked. And it doesn't smell as good either. So, scallop potatoes, if it's Liz. If I'm the one cooking, I think that I cook like roasted potatoes best. So kind of like home fries. You just chop them up into chunks. You can do this with sweet potato and other things too. You season them, a little bit of oil or butter. I prefer to use butter because it's healthier for you. And then you just pop them in the oven, roast them up till they're crisp. And then you serve them with ketchup, of course. Helicopter rides for communists. And the term legacy media was used in the latest season of The Boys on Amazon. Yeah, somebody sent me, it was funny. It has nothing to do with legacy media. Somebody sent me a screen grab from an Australian series, I think a crime series, and apparently a copy of My Petite Albert from Amazon was actually a prop used in the show. I thought that was hilarious. Bocephus Sticks, the Freedom Report lists Florida and New Hampshire as number 1 and number 2. Vermont was 43. What? I thought New Hampshire and Vermont were the same. No, politically and socially, they're night and day. Now, Vermont is a deeply authoritarian state run by a bunch of extreme leftoids. Khalid Cooper, clank. Clank to you too. Yes, I've still got coffee. I'm already hyper-caffeinated. I'm on cup number 3, so look out. So yeah, Hannukah celebration by Google, they fucked up. Next, we've got the Greta and Andrew Tate story. I don't really give a fucking shit about this, but it's entertaining because Twitter has devolved back into being the dumpster fire it's supposed to be. Thank you, Elon Musk, by the way. The site is much more fun now. Andrew Tate, and I don't know exactly why he did this other than attention grabbing. The other day, tweeting at Greta Thunberg. Of course, she's the 19-year-old who rambles about the need for more environmentalism, using her crapple device while sitting in her McMansion, jet-setting across the world and doing absolutely nothing to actually solve environmental issues. She doesn't go out and pick up trash. She doesn't plant trees. She doesn't do organic gardening. She did these things. She'd have my respect, by the way. She doesn't do any of them. Instead, she just goes and she talks to politicians and berates people for their own choices. Andrew Tate antagonized her. And I mean, he was the one that started this shit, to be clear. Hello, Greta Thunberg. I have 33 cars. My Bugatti has a W16 8-liter quad turbo. My 2 Ferrari 812 Competizione have 6.5-liter V12s. This is just the start. Please provide your email address so I can send a complete list of my car collection and their respective enormous emissions. So, I mean, I'm not sure what the point is other than shitpot stirring, because, I mean, that's basically his career. He was a kickboxer, a fairly good one, actually, for a number of years. And then he started doing, I think, like exercise tutorials and shit, and he made a shit ton of money. And now all he has to do to keep making millions of fucking bucks is get attention. It's literally all he has to do. By the way, as no particular fan of Andrew Tate, I'm not into misogyny. You know, I'm married and have a daughter, among other things. Some of it is just shit posting. Like a few days ago, he had a post who was like, "Well, reading books is low T. It's like unmanly or something." And people pointed out, of course, he's written, I think, several books. I think that's just to get attention. I think this is too. Her reaction, though, was rather entertaining too. Greta replying to him, and of course, it may not have been Greta Thunberg. It may have been one of her many handlers. She is not really a person online. She's more like a managed asset, like a brand, which is similar to Andrew Tate. Yes, please do enlighten me. Email me at smalldickenergy@getalife.com. It'd be funny, by the way, if that domain actually was registered and the email actually existed. Can you imagine that you've made like a joke email on some nobody site, like, you know, just as a joke, and then all of a sudden 1 million people are emailing you and thinking that you're Andrew Tate or Greta Thunberg or something? That'd be fucking funny. Now, it's amusing at first because, you know, when you're trying to go with the manosphere, I'm macho, I'm alpha thing, saying, you know, you have a little pee-pee, I guess, you know, maybe cuts deep. And, you know, I don't know. I guess dick and ball jokes about Andrew Tate are a thing already. I don't fucking know. I don't keep up with that fucking side of the internet. I'm too busy studying linguistics and shit. Anyway, that's funny as hell. I do find it interesting, first, that Tate would do this to a 19-year-old. But it's interesting to see Greta Thunberg talking about penises. I bet there were some 4chan threads regarding that. Considering some thirst that I have seen posted on there, it's a little bit on the weird side, just to be clear. If you use 4chan, you get desensitized to a lot of things. And then I think he replied, "How dare you?" And some people thought he was triggered, and I don't think they got the reference. And now it's basically just a trigger fest of people, of thin-skinned manosphere people, and like the really out there NIMBY far left climate crowd just trashing each other. And we get to sit back and watch the spectacle. I think it's funny. CC, hey Sticks, what are your thoughts on TikTok being banned from House of Reps devices? Do you think they will eventually ban the app for all in the US? I don't know that there's any legality to them being able to ban TikTok US-wide, but they can ban it on government devices, and they should. It is Chinese propaganda and spyware. It should not be on government devices because it turns them effectively into nothing more than spying devices. Now, I know that that's also the case if you have Facebook and shit. And so really the House of Reps shouldn't have any of these apps on their work phones because it compromises their data, potentially classified material, etc. Not sure why they'd be talking about classified shit on a smartphone anyway. It's a great way to get spied on by somebody. Michael Cricklow, do you think two people who are astrologically incompatible can make a relationship work? Yes, I am not a hardline believer in astrology. Through epigenetics and a few other things, the time of and date of birth may be meaningful. That is the case, especially in a more variable climate. Overall, while I do notice quite a bit of overlap between astrological, like zodiac signs and people's behavior, a lot of that can be boiled down to a self-fulfilling prophecy. So they see like I'm an Aquarius. I have quite a few Aquarian traits. If you've ever met me, you probably know this. But part of that could be, let's look at this from the scientific angle. I could be preconceived. There could be preconceived bias in which I unconsciously focus on those aspects of my personality to the not noticing other aspects that nullify the premise. So I tend to be introverted, a little emotionally icy. I'm very eccentric. I'm very ambitious. These are all Aquarian traits. But if I look through the whole list of traits, I could find some that maybe don't apply as much, just to be clear. Let's see. Shalumi Shalom Sticks. What's up with Canada's obsession with youth in Asia? I didn't know that there was one. They seem to be more obsessed with killing people right now. Jens Peterson. Watch the fun game reviewer, Seth Zintak. He is fun. I'll pop that up there because I don't know. People probably couldn't spell it from my pronunciation. Seth Zintak. Cyberbeep. Hi, Sticks. Hope you and the family are doing well. Very well, actually. What do you think of the current updates to the Kerry Lake situation, as well as ATF being stripped of the ability to regulate frames and receivers? Time to push for repeal of gun laws. I thought that the government just redefined frames and receivers in order to make it more expansive, actually. That's what I read. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I misread it. The Kerry Lake situation is she has lost, but she is now in the mode of simply bringing more attention to Maricopa's various dysfunctions. So keeping it going is, in her self-interest. Over on Rumble. ISU Josh, is it true that you were a hardcore gang member in Rutland and you robbed so many people that a robbery became known as a sticks-up? Sadly, no. I went off on a different career trajectory. Lots of property crime in Rutland, though. The homeless population has probably tripled and drugs are everywhere. Apparently, it's becoming even more of a shithole than it was when I was young. Matt G. Hammond. Andrew Tate made a considerable amount of money setting up an erotic cam model site and later selling it. Oh, okay. There's a fortune to be made in that sort of shit. Next news story. MSNBC hates white people, by the way. You probably already know this if you've seen any of their posts, but they've posted this over and fucking over. And this is one thing that ultra rankles me about MSNBC. CNN tends not to do this. Fox doesn't tend to do this. There aren't many legacy sites that are this desperate for their clickbait to get through. Apparently, MSNBC figures if they write the story once but post about it for an entire week, it cuts down the number of stories they have to release in order to get their ad revenue. Jesse J. Holland, it's easy to scoff at Stephen Miller's mission to help white men. Here's the scary part. If you read through it, it's basically the concept that white men should not get any legal protection and should be just thrown under the bus. And we're all terrible people. I would say this, looking at human history, you would miss us if we were gone. Let's put it that way. It's funny because if you say that about any other group of people on Earth, people don't have a problem with it. But if you applaud white males and say, look, white males did this and that and the other thing, and these are good things, and this white man invented some drug that saved 1 million lives. This white man led a revolution and liberated millions of people. If you adulate that at all, then, you're an imperialist. It's unconscious racism and you're a misogynist and all this other fucking shit. So sit there in your hovel with your peanut butter if you don't like white men. If you are racist against white people or misandrist against men, if you combine the two together, I think it's these people that have the problem, not the evil white males. Bo Cephas Sticks, thanks. I was thinking Vermont would be a cool place to live. I'll look at New Hampshire or maybe Texas. Clank and thanks again. Yes, do not move to Vermont. If you want to deal with that kind of weather, New Hampshire is a better bet. Desert Fox, lighthearted question. What vowel have you taken that enables your cats to inconvenience you to the point of lack of sleep? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it true that cats look for worshippers? Yeah, they pretty much get worship. And I would force them out of my workspace, but I have no ability to do so. I mean, she's just going to flummox back up here if I push her down anyway. So I've pretty much given up on anything other than keeping her out of the realm of near the screen and the keyboard, because that would be a problem. She tries to sit on the keyboard and type sometimes, actually. Ryan McDonald USA, did Marjorie Taylor Greene fool everyone into re-election? No, she was re-elected on her own merit. That being said, she's not exactly number one on the list of principled MAGA populists at this point, but I think Lauren Boebert is better overall. Myra Flores, certain others. Cledge Fenrier, seen part of Illinois Safety Act has been stopped, but haven't seen to what extent yet. Yeah, I think part of that was blocked by a judge, actually. Next news story. This is an RCP bit, so I couldn't archive it, because if you try to archive RCP articles, it will all it will do is archive the thing that's like anti-bot protection. So, but I mean, it's an aggregator, so I don't care if they get the clickbait. The FBI has no business trying to suppress free speech. That's it. That's the entire story. It's an opinion piece by Charles Lipson, RCP contributor. I like RCP because they have a balance there. So you'll see some shit, some leftoid bullshit, like a write-up by Bernie Sanders in an op-ed, or Paul Krugman weighing in on something for WAPO or whatever. But then you'll see something like this. RCP really is the best news aggregator overall, and definitely by far the best polling aggregator. Last election results aside, of course. Drive-by commenter. For a while, we used to look at the left schisming, but it looks like the only crack that'll happen is between the GOP and its base. Yeah, woe unto them if that happens, by the way. Yeah, Nick F. The FBI has no business existing. Yes, technically it was incepted as a temporary agency back in the gangland era. Why the fuck is it still around? People don't tote around Tommy guns and do moonshining anymore. There's no purpose to the FBI. People think it's a sacrosanct. It's a sacred cow. They think the same about the IRS. Like before the IRS existed, there was no tax system. It was impossible to collect taxes from people without an IRS. Horseshit. It's just a bloated bureaucratic agency that should be done away with entirely. Shank Uger's sweaty gunt. Arm the Beagles. Banned from Twitter after changing display name to humble Taiwanese fish merchant. I think Elon just hates Taiwan. Yeah, there are some wonky things about the new algorithms on Twitter, but they are overall improving. Next news story is a funny one. Jim Clyburn backs Biden all the way. He's delivered for this country. Dave Smith in Washington. South Carolina congressman says Biden delivered for the country and put it back on track, making him a powerful contender for 2024. Yes, we have the first major simp, other than Karine Jean-Pierre and people in the administration itself, to back Joe Biden for re-election. Now, there's a coincidence here, and I'm sure that it's a coincidence. And I'm definitely not the only person who fucking noticed this. This comes a week after Joe Biden openly stated that it was his desire to put South Carolina first in the primary matchup. Hey, I want to put your state before New Hampshire and Iowa for demographic reasons. The new order is going to go South Carolina, Nevada, eliminating the caucus structure, by the way, and then Iowa and New Hampshire, or potentially other states. They'll be sucking hind tit as far as the first four contests if they're in at all. South Carolina is more demographically appropriate for the Democratic Party, I would say, due to race, socioeconomic factors, etc. It does actually make sense. But by God, when the first person to come out and endorse, very early on, by the way, a potential Biden run happens to be the congressman from the state that's now going to go first if Biden gets his way, I have a sneaking goddamn suspicion that those two things are related. Don't you? I hate to tell you this. I think that might be the reason. Can't imagine anything else. I mean, it's just basically a giant simp piece. Well, he's done so many things for the country. No, he hasn't. What has he done? A bunch of things that ingratiate you to Democratic voters. That's fine if you want to be perfectly partisan. It's not getting any independent voters aboard. Joe Biden's approval actually rose a couple points in the aggregate within the last few weeks. I'm not exactly sure, by the way, what impetus started that. I have a feeling it's because the gas prices are marginally lower and still falling for a while, which means it's going to reverse at some point, the next year when we hit that recession with stagflation. Hi, Leaf 11. The weapons I would like to get before I die is a G3, M1 Garand, M16, MG3, and MP5K. What would your top weapons be? I don't know. I want a 357 revolver of some sort because those are pretty cool. I would like to get just a regular shotgun at some point too, specifically with Dragon's Breath rounds. Yeah, it's a meme, whatever. It looks cool and it would be fun to play around with. And we'll be speaking about flamethrowers later. I would like to get one of those. I realize it's not technically a weapon at all under US law. You only have to be 18 to get one. It's less regulated than a goddamn 22 revolver from 100 years ago, actually. So keeping that in mind, yeah, it'd be nice to have that. I'd like to get an AR-15 just to trigger the libs, I suppose. You can get them converted to 308. I think that would be a bit better than 5.56. So that's probably what I'm going to do. It'd be cool to have a mortar or grenade launcher, I suppose. You can get a grenade launcher for the AR platform. You just have to do a tax stamp. If you can find grenades, you can buy them. It's just you have to register them as a destructive device and pay $200 a piece in order to own them. And you have to, I think, do a bunch more paperwork as far as storage is concerned. Kind of makes sense with explosives, just saying. As a constitutional pragmatist, at the very least, there is a pragmatic argument to be made for regulating full-on explosives. Jago St. Moritz sent $2. No comment, thank you. Now, I'm pretty sure AR-308 is called AR-10. Oh, yes, you're correct. My apologies. But yeah, 357 revolver is definitely, I think, top on the list. I'd like to get a tactical pistol at some point. A pistol that has the magazine in front of the trigger. 1,000 different versions of those. There is an AR pistol version too. Although again, I'm not sure what they're doing with pistol braces right now. The ATF's rules are all fucked up. All of them run afoul of Bruin though. They should all be done away with. Christopher Robin, 308 gang. Daniel, he doesn't make his own grenades. Yeah, I don't really want to throw my fairly lucrative life away and spend 20, 30 years rotting and fed in order to blow up a tree stump. Ozzy's Robots, as a collector, it's easy to get fully auto arms for your information. Yeah, a little bit out of my price range. I think the starting on a Tommy gun that's in pretty poor shape and might fire is like $8,000. I think that I have other priorities. Like, I could put that into a trust fund for my daughter or something like that. I'll just get whatever weapons are available. There's usually a fairly good selection in Vermont gun stores. Have to move to New Hampshire, I guess, if you want, the expanded, aka standard capacity magazines these days. Although I think Vermont's mag restrictions are embattled. The Supreme Court upheld them, but a federal court could step in and say no. Next news story, Taiwan extends mandatory military service period to counter the Chinese threat. Taiwan will extend the period of mandatory service for all eligible men from 4 months to a year amid rising threats from China, President Tsai Ing-wen said at a news conference in Taipei on Tuesday. 4 months of mandatory military training can no longer suit the needs of Taiwan's defense, she said, adding that while extending the service period was a difficult decision, it was necessary for safeguarding the island's democratic way of life. That's a good idea in general. And I think they do have it. So you don't have to do combat shit. You can do field medicine and stuff. And that's pretty cool. We should have something similar to that in the US, like mandatory ROTC for a semester or something in high school. Just the basics. Again, if you're a conscientious objector and you hate guns and shit, I don't want you holding a gun if you hate them because you won't know how to use it. Just study field medicine or march around in a circle or some shit like that. Think of it as extra gym class for our obese generation. That's fine, but it's a mistake, and I'll tell you why. You're preparing people for the possibility of a Chinese invasion. That's wonderful. Your population will be overall a bit more healthy, at least the male population, more healthy. They will probably be better marksmen, et cetera, et cetera. They do a lot of martial arts. Maybe they got a black belt in karate now or something like that. That's fine. Here's the problem. Your population is disarmed. Where are all of the weapons that you would need? You want a centralized source, an armory system to hand out weapons in the event of a Chinese invasion? The Chinese would establish a beachhead, overrun those positions, and confiscate all of the weapons. So half of your now much more prepared population would be fighting with their bare hands. Well, that doesn't work. You'd be better off giving them sabotage manuals from the CIA. What Taiwan should do is they should decriminalize the private ownership of weapons in their country. Right now, it is hyper-regulated there. It's very difficult to get a gun. Adopt a Swiss-style system. You're halfway there by extending the mandatory service period. You should extend it to females as well, because in the case of an invasion, they're going to have to fight. The hope that you're not going to have to deal with the situation. Add this for females as well, unless a person is married, have dependents or something like that, or they're crippled up, they're mentally or physically incapable of doing something in a battle role, and then give them guns. Give them lots of guns. Do like what the Swiss do, where you have to own a weapon. Be like Alabama. The Chinese are not going to attempt to establish a beachhead on an island where they have to rely on naval and air power to even do that if they know that 10 million people are going to be shooting at them. It'd be suicide. Your military would be killing half the Chinese that attempted to cross the strait, and then when they landed, they'd be under fire 24/7 from every goddamn, behind every rock, behind every village square. They'd be a little bit more reluctant if you had a martial population. I've been pushing this for several years now. By the way, that's why we need more guns in the U.S. The militia is currently deficient. Half the U.S. population don't own guns. Our militia is actually unregulated. It's insufficiently armed. We have too few firearms in the United States. We should have at least twice as many in many more hands. Keith Sparbaney, Arizona citizens petition to recall Hobbs. I don't know that it would pass. You could try, though. Yeah, give lots of guns to people. That's what you should do. Speaking of weapons, Philip Melanchthon Wegman is very, very upset right now. Scoop, Governor Kristi Noem now owns her own flamethrower, a Christmas gift from her staff. 2 years ago, Kristi Noem fired off a flamethrower, joking, "Is it too late to add something to my Christmas list?" Her staff pulled together and bought her one this year. And then it shows, like, people are posting fucking memes and shit. Now, I have a problem with Kristi Noem's flamethrower. It's insufficient. She's got one of those little hand models. I've seen them posted about on YouTube. Totally insufficient. It's basically a giant weed wand. It's better than the kind you get from the Boring Company. Elon Musk made the not a flamethrower, which is quite literally an oversized weed wand. This is a proper flamethrower, but it's like a really compact, short distance version. You can also get ones that are almost comparable to the kind that are used by modern militaries. They will fire a very, very hot stream of very, very long distance, some of them made in Russia. You can obtain them and simply prove that you're 18. You don't need to do any paperwork. They are less regulated than even the most small caliber of modern weapons, to be clear. You will have more trouble and go through more paperwork and time and a background check too, trying to get a snub-nose, fucking 5-shot subpar 22 short revolver than getting a full-on backpack-enabled flamethrower in the United States. This is our weapons law system. This is why the ATF should probably go bye-bye as well. Yeah, the X-15 or something like that. You can get flamethrowers that are considerably bigger and badder than this one. They'll run you quite a bit of money. And by the way, you can also get a thickened fuel for them that is almost like napalm. I believe it's made with styrofoam, if I remember correctly. Thickening agents added to the propellant that's being used. I want one of those, though. I want one of the big-ass backpack ones. I want my own power armor, too, though. I mean, I'm going crazy in my old age. So, yeah, the liberals are all worried. Oh, my God, Kristi Noem's going to kill people. This is gun culture, even though it's clearly not a firearm. Basically, it's like a giant lighter anyway. They're all upset. Meanwhile, those people that know anything about the topic are criticizing her because her flamethrower is too small. It's small dick energy, as Greta Thunberg would say, and you're harming the environment by burning those propellants, burning a bunch of cardboard boxes. I mean, it looks cool, but there are cooler ones. Just to be clear, you're Kristi Noem. I mean, fucking, of course you can afford a bigger flamethrower than that. Punish your staff for being cheapskates this Christmas. Highleaf11, I like to see every town in the U.S. have at least one militia or two, which would make the town stand together more and be more united as a community. Yeah, I think we should bring back bunkers and armories, and bigger weapons and explosives and shit can be safely stored at the community level for quick dispensation in case of attack. Everything else should be civilian-owned, individually trained with and maintained, purchased, etc. And it should be a free-for-all. Yeah, you should be able to have an actual assault weapon. And you shouldn't have to pass a fucking background check to do it. Make sure the person's a citizen. Make sure they're not a violent felon or a lunatic. That's basically all. Go ahead and do whatever you want. Safe storage laws are arguably the most stupid. Yeah, a person breaks in at night. The first thing you want to have to do is fiddle around with your safe and then fiddle around with the gun lock. Makes a lot of sense. Jens Peterson, question. If then use flamethrower for home defense, are you then less likely to get thrown in prison? No, self-defense laws, I do not believe particularly depend on the weapon, with one exception. If you deploy a less than lethal means to harm a person, they're breaking into your home, you've got a gun on one hip and you've got pepper spray on the other, and you use the pepper spray. There have been some cases, and this is not going to be the case in a stand your ground Castle Doctrine style states, and not Indiana or Texas or something. If you're in a blue state, and you choose the less than lethal means despite having a lethal means available, what can a prosecution argue if they want to really fuck you in the ass? You weren't in danger. You knew you weren't in danger, and we can prove this. You had the opportunity to use lethal force, and you chose not to use it, proving that in your mind you didn't think that you needed to use force at all. You weren't in fear of your life. And it's not a stand your ground or a Castle Doctrine state. You're fucked if they choose to bring a case against you. It's rare. It's not common at all. Certainly not if you're in your own home on your own property. In virtually all states, that won't happen. There are a few states in which it has, just to be clear. I hope that answers the question. Aussie's Robots, the way the U.S. can destabilize countries on a whim, see Iraq, Syria, Libya. I wonder if it encourages authoritarianism, communism, etc. globally as a counter. Yeah, it does. Other authoritarian ideologies tend to spring up in the wake of the U.S. doing such things. I've always argued that our over-willingness to world police creates more terrorists than we ever can kill. So, Ty Salome, thoughts on TikTok being banned on government devices? We covered that. I support the idea. They should do the same with Meta and anything else that tracks what you're doing, etc. Why am I? Oh, for some reason that resized itself. That was weird. Thanks, Rumble. It resized itself for no reason. I didn't touch anything. Another Rumble rant. Cruel. Someone mentioned militia. I'm more interested in armed neighborhood watch to reduce crime in my area. What's your opinion on that? Yeah, we need more George Zimmermans to take care of the scissor drinkers. I see no problem with this. Next news story. This is a good one. This would personally affect me, possibly in a very positive manner. Apparently, Elon Musk is saying he's open to the concept of buying Substack. Now, Substack was incepted years ago. It's effectively a WordPress replacement. I use mine specifically as a blog. They also have podcasting abilities now. They put that in earlier this year. I've thought about doing that, by the way, because some people keep asking for an audio show because they just want to listen. Of course, I got a face for radio, so it would sort of work. If Elon Musk buys Substack, and I'm hesitant to predict that he's actually going to make a big pitch for it, I don't know how much it would cost, honestly. It's grown massively. There are people who make six-figure salaries on their Substack by having paid articles. Mine are all free, by the way. You can join me on Substack, link in the description. You should definitely check it out. I promise not to overflow your email. I write 1 or 2 articles a month maximum. I think it would work. If you were to tie it in functionally with Twitter, you'd have the podcasting ability. You could hook that directly into Twitter. You could combine accounts and shit. And then you'd have the blog functionality. You could probably figure out a way to intertwine them pretty well for the purposes of posting material on Twitter that's longer than a tweet. It would automatically cross-post. Again, you'd have the audio functionality of podcasting. That's pretty good. You'd be doing something similar to like what Rumble is doing. You've got Rumble for video, paired with the social media, Truth Social for what it's worth. Locals is paired into the same sort of nexus. It's like a little confederacy of semi-independent sites under the same broad umbrella that complement one another. If Elon Musk goes down that route, he could create something that's quite formidable. You'd be robbing Meta of any last any last fumes it's running on. I like the idea, but I'm skeptical as to whether it'll end up happening. By the way, I do not have any news on Ted Kaczynski. I do not know whether he's dead or alive. I think it's a meme the other day. Someone posted on 4chan that he had died. Hi, Leaf 11. I remember an old movie, Wolverines, where the leader of an invading army said, go to the sports store and look for a list of guns. Owner kind of hit it on the nose there. Yeah. James Willis. Electrically charged plasma governs the cosmos. Next news story. The Jordanian king is warning of red lines in Jerusalem as Netanyahu returns to office. There are hardliners in Israel that want Jews to go and pray on the Temple Mount. Of course, it's not really the Temple of Solomon. It's an old Roman fortification that they venerate for some reason as though it was actually made further back in antiquity. The problem is, of course, the Dome of the Rock happens to currently sit on it. It was conquested by Muslims. And then the Dome of the Rock was made. I think it represents the site at which Muhammad ascended, if I remember correctly. And so it's one of the holiest places in Islam. So what will happen is that the Israelis took over the Jerusalem region, East Jerusalem. And they gave a guarantor that they would keep Jews and Christians out of that particular area in order to allow Muslims to use it as a holy place to pray. If you were to reverse that decision, you could get into a war with Jordan, possibly Egypt and other countries. This ain't the 1960s anymore from the last major crisis. Some of these militaries have at least standard forces that are comparable with Israel's firepower. Egypt has one of the largest and most sophisticated militaries in the world. Few people understand this, by the way. It happens because they own the Suez Canal. Much like the Turks owning the Bosphorus, allows them to derive huge amounts of extra money because ships want to go through that particular region. These two countries could dogpile Israel and cause major problems. Yes, I realize the Israelis do have nukes, or at least they probably have nukes. We know that they got nuclear triggers in the 1980s. The Pentagon report about that was very quickly hushed up, you'll remember. It was 84 or was it 87? Somewhere around the mid-80s anyway. It was disclosed to the U.S. government that a number of nuclear triggers had been successfully stolen from the United States. They made it to Israel, and they may have conducted a nuclear test off the coast of South Africa at one point. We're not 100% sure about that. Definitely happened. Could have been a joint cooperation. Nobody's quite sure. The fact that nobody's quite sure is carefully curated, by the way. The problem is that these days, Egypt is not backwards militarily like it was in the 60s. Yes, it had significant manpower advantage. As far as the actual weaponry, though, was basically a generation removed from what the Israelis managed to scrape together due to foreign aid. That's no longer the case. Israel has top-of-the-line equipment. So does Egypt. They've purchased the same kind of systems. Turkey, certainly the same, and they can get more. Jordan, the Jordanians curb-stomped ISIS forces. You remember that? Their fucking king was running sorties himself, apparently having trained as a pilot at one point. Kind of badass. It'd be funny if the Jordanian king, he gets into an F-16 and he's trying to run sorties over Israel, gets hit by Iron Dome, and it causes an international diplomatic incident. While I don't have a problem with the idea of basically anyone just wandering around the Temple Mount, because I don't believe in the God of Abraham and Moses and shit, and I see it all as a bunch of just bickering and bitching, and it's completely pointless. This whole area is a powder keg waiting to blow just for religious reasons, let alone for strategic and military purposes. Probably best to just appease the Jordanians on this one, Netanyahu. They're probably a good idea. Unless you find a red heifer with the Temple Institute at some point, then, you know, I guess Abaddon is coming back. The Satan's going to pop out of the ground. We're all going to die. Just a second here. Something's going on. Oh, never mind. No, my tab is over here. I'm stupid. Anyway, and by the way, Richter Morty, no, I am not Jewish. I am 100% Goyim. Time history, the white supremacist origins of exercise, and 6 other surprising facts about the history of U.S. physical fitness. Yes, according to Time history, I guess they're literally from Time magazine, exercising is not a thing unless you're an evil white supremacist. If you're in the United States, at least, it's the claim here. The idea is that exercise clubs and shit, they sort of tie in with segregation and stuff. Well, no fucking shit. Yeah, of course they did. And yes, the Get Fit movement of the Volkish era, we're talking the dawn of the 20th century, of course it has something to do with socio-political and ethnic ideology at the time. That has nothing to do with supremacy, though. It was an individualistic movement in its roots. If you actually look back at the U.S. origins of many of these things, it was an attempt of people to improve themselves. Even the rudiments of what become the temperance movement and later prohibition begin that way. Simply gets co-opted by other groups that wanted to make it more collectivized. Ty Sloam, are the god of war games a good view of mythology? I don't know. I have no clue. So yeah, if you're you might know that a person's a Nazi if they go to the gym. In other words, according to Time. Now, keep in mind there are people who will link you articles from Time and assume that they're real. This is the sort of thing I would expect from MSNBC more than Time, actually. Usually they stay a little bit away from the hyper woke edge of things. The white supremacist origins of exercise. No, that's because the generation before that, when people typically they had to work the land and shit, they were already getting their 10 hours of exercise a day, hoeing up turnips or hewing rough lumber into planks or something like that. As people became more clerical, more sedentary, you have to compensate somehow. The fact that the U.S. population was 95% white at the time doesn't make them a bunch of evil Nazis. Predates the very concept. And yes, by the way, believe it or not, there were people in the United States at the time, this article ignoring them, that were black or of native ancestry, even people from Asia, and they exercised too. But they just couldn't go to the gentleman's club gym because it was all white at the time. No shit. Yeah, in the Jim Crow era, there was a lot of blanding up, especially in the pool and places like that. Georgie Georgiev, hello Sticks, just here to say hi and to complain about how many people trust Wikipedia. It is so annoying. I frequently catch information that is incorrect. Yeah, me too. Wikipedia, it's fun to go down the rabbit hole of weird historical articles or anything that's related. I like biology, marine history, things like the paranormal. For that, Wikipedia is pretty okay. If there are any political connotations, though, you should avoid using it altogether because it will be one-sided. There is explicit and fairly openly professed bias on the talk pages there. Originally, it was reliable for religion, too. That's gone by the wayside, too, because religion's become so hyper-politicized. So you can't even get accurate info on the history of religion anymore on Wikipedia. Immortal Legend, next grocery stores and shopping are racist. Yes, starve yourself for wokeness. Eating is racist because your food choices were informed by people who were Nazis. I like when they said that the AR-15 was racist because the M16 it's based off of was based off of a Nazi design. Yes, of course, and the Nazis totally did not adapt prior technology when they were making their rudimentary proto-assault weapons, just to be clear. They invented it out of their own. They had never studied any other guns that were ever used in World War I or any era like that. Cheeseburger. Wikipedia has a 90% failure rate when it comes to mycology pictures. I haven't checked that out. I can believe it, though. But then again, even people who are fairly rigorous in mycology. I'm an amateur mycologist of sorts, too. I've gone mushrooming. I've eaten wild mushrooms. I drew a bunch of illustrations when I was younger. I used to spend the whole summer basically out in the woods, and that was a big part of it because I thought mushrooms were cool. But even when you know a lot about mushrooms, it can still be difficult sometimes to tell similar species apart. Sometimes not. Like, for some reason, there are still people that accidentally pick false morals and think they're real morals. I never thought they looked similar, to tell the truth. They're pretty easily identified. Or they pick a mushroom thinking that it's edible and it's like an Amanita muscaria. It's like, this doesn't look like anything that you would want to eat unless you want to get high and possibly die. Georgie Georgiev. Well, the woke already glue themselves to random stuff. I think they are so brave and rebels. Good thing that here in the East EU, they are rare. Wokeness is actually very rare here in the Netherlands, too. You wouldn't know that. I guess Americans have a thing where they think that Western Europe is much more like socialist. I assure you that's not the case. Dude, I go to the fucking store, I see Zwarte Piet walking around. There were several people Several of the cashiers at the local Jumbo dressed as Svart Pete for the Sinterklaas thing. Full-on blackface. Full blackface and red lips, like a minstrel show. You're not going to see that in the US. It gets sued. Here, nobody gives a fucking shit outside of Amsterdam and Den Haag. Aussie's robots, 2023 on brink of nuclear war. Countries warring over religious nonsense. People triggered by historical statues and exercise were ruled by evil idiots. I would agree, yeah. Yeah, Black Pete is pretty cool. I like Sinterklaas stuff. It's nice that they have a tradition that's politically incorrect but refuse to get rid of it. Unlike pussies on the other side of the pond, the Dutch have actually done it better. It's funny that there's at least a few elements of this fucking society that are more libertarian than that in the United States, including in a lot of the red states. Americans take notice. I think that we can do better. Hi, Leave 11. What is your opinion on Poland? They are very based. I like Poland. I'd love to see it. Good food, lots of classical architecture. Hardcore fuckers. You don't want to fuck with them. As long as, unless they're trying to use, hussars to attack tanks. That's, by the way, actually a historical mythology. They were trying to distract the tanks to allow people to escape. Don't worry, Polish people. I know the real history of that. Other than being badly outdated compared to other regional militaries and being in the unenviable position of being between the Germans and the Russians, the Polish, kick ass. Although I think of all the militaries in the world, the one I wouldn't want to fuck with the most are the Vietnamese. They kick the shit out of the US. They kick the shit out of the Chinese. They kick ass. They kicked Pol Pot's ass. Have they ever actually the Chinese invaded antiquity a few times too. Have they ever been successfully subjugated other than by the French, who also have a pretty good win-loss ratio, again, except for times when they're caught unaware and they're too busy getting wine drunk. I think Australia would be a close second because Australians are insane. You walk out your door, everything's trying to kill you. So the fact that you've survived is a testament to your fortitude. Anyway, I think I'm going to go offline now. I've enjoyed this. I do have to keep it a little bit on the short side. The baby's out for a walk, but that won't last forever. It's a lot easier when the baby's not physically here to do the show, unless the cats are getting spicy. And of course, that means that the cats often get spicy. Thankfully today, not the case. That's about all. Rozzie's Robots. Have you visited Italy yet? It's beautiful. No, but Tuscany is definitely on the top of the priority list, along with Iceland, actually. That's about all. Peace.